So what I'm gonna do is I wanna just do a live and answer as many of your questions as I can for the next 20 to 30 minutes or so, or until baby needs me back again. So I'm gonna answer your questions, so feel free to start leaving them there in the comments section, and then I'll go back and try to sort through as I usually do and start answering them. As we're getting some questions going here, I wanna talk for a couple minutes about my program that's opening up here a week from Monday. So I'll do that for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I will start taking your questions. So again, just feel free to leave them in the comments section down below, and I will go back and check through them. You can ask me anything really flower business related, whether you're talking about the business side of things or specifically the flower side of things. So let's get going. I want to talk for a minute here about my coaching program called In the Weeds. That is going to be starting on February 17th. This is something I'm only planning to do once, possibly twice this year. At this point, I'm only planning to run it once. It's a lot of work on my part. And I need to run it in the off season when I'm not so busy out in the field. So what is this coaching program all about? I know it can be a little confusing. So I started out a little over a year ago now. I wanted to create a combination of an online course for people just getting started in the flower business, in the cut flower business, or wanting to start a flower farm. I wanted to create a course, but I didn't think a course was enough. I thought it was really important. You know, when I started out, I just wanted someone that I could just pick their brains. You know, someone that had already started a business like I wanted to start, maybe was a young mom like I was. How do you balance the things? What do I need to do? How do I even get started? How do I find customers? I wanted to be able to pick someone's brain. So that's what I wanted to put together. So I knew that I couldn't just create a course where you would log on and just go through it at your own pace and then you're done and then go off on your way. I wanted to create something where I was actually sort of coaching students through it. So that's what I did. So In the Weeds is a combination of a 6-week course, basically self-paced content. You could take it at your own speed if you want to. But for 6 weeks, I am also your live coach. So what that means is we have what I call the group chat, which is like my favorite piece of the whole thing, which is like, think of it like a live text chain with all of your best like flower farming friends, basically asking questions. And I'm in there answering all of them, hosting discussions and brainstorms, just troubleshooting everything that you need basically to get the business going, whether again it's business questions or flower related questions. So that's the group chat, that's the live coaching piece of it. The second piece of coaching is that every week for 6 weeks we have a live call. So they're usually about an hour long, but I don't cut them off. We go until everyone's questions are answered for the week, and it's live. So I am taking questions that everyone has and answering them for the group. So answering them one-on-one. The important piece there is that I know everyone can't make it live. So they are held, this session, they're going to be held at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fridays. So every Friday for 6 weeks. And because everyone can't make it, what I do is I ask for questions beforehand. So students send me emails or shoot me DMs or ask them. I have a thread in the group chat where you can list all your questions. So I make sure that everyone's questions are answered. And then the calls are actually recorded and uploaded right into the course content. So you can go back and watch the call whenever it suits. I find that what a lot of people do is even if they could make the call live, they might go back a week, they might go back 2 months later and we rewatch the call because now they're kind of in the thick of it and need those questions answered again. So that's kind of the live coaching piece. So that's In the Weeds. It is 6 weeks of content. So it is actually an online course that you have lifetime access to once we're done. It's 6 modules full of content. I'll talk here in a minute about what we actually cover. And then again, we work through that for the 6 weeks. Each week we'll work on a different module, and each week we will be talking about all of that, all of the topics we've covered in the group chat and then on the live call on Fridays. So that's how that works. So to get into the program, you can find a link in my bio and join there, pop over to my website. So that is kind of the the standard option. And then this year I'm also offering kind of like a VIP option. I'm calling it the Flourish Path. So that is for students who want a little bit more coaching and one-on-one coaching specifically. So what we're going to be doing is after the 6 weeks have ended, the VIP kind of students will get an additional 6 months of a call every single month. The group chat will stay open for those 6 months. And then VIP students also get a one-on-one call with me at any point to discuss your business. So that those are the two options that we have. I'm going to talk here for a second about the topics that I cover within the course, and then we'll get to your questions because I see lots and lots coming in and I can't wait to talk about them. So, and this actually is answering some questions that I had people leave yesterday pertaining to the course. So someone wanted to know if we are going to cover how to make your business legal and legit. And that is the very first week. So the first week is business basics. We get into business planning, writing a business plan, getting into setting up your business with the state, getting your taxes set up, getting your finances set up, figuring out how to actually fit a business into your life, whether you are looking to do your cut flower business or flower farm full-time, whether you want it to be a side hustle or whether you just want it to be kind of something in between. Maybe you're a teacher and just want to kind of do this over the summer. Maybe you're a busy mom and just want to have kind of something on the side to bring in some extra income. We're going to talk about that. So that is module 1, that's business. In module 2, we dive into everything about cut flowers. So growing cut flowers is a whole different ball game than planting flowers in your garden just for landscaping. So we talk about what flowers to grow, the grow list that I use here at my farm, recommended varieties, where to source them, etc. So we get into the flowers. In module 3, we actually talk about growing the flowers. So I share tips about field layout, how to get your field set up, all of the supplies that you need and how to do that. Seed starting, and specifically sharing my seed starting and planting schedule. It's an actual spreadsheet that I share with you that you can then modify to fit your growing zone and whatever you are growing. How to source transplants, where to find seeds, all of that. We'll cover perennials, we'll cover annuals. That is module 3. In module 4, we get into the actual sales of cut flowers. So we start out with kind of preparing the flowers for sale, harvest and preparation, making bouquets. We talk about pricing, which is something that kind of trips everybody up. So how to price your cut flowers, how to take payments. We talk really specifically about running a subscription program. That's a really big piece of this course is because it's such a big part of my business, my subscription program makes up about 1/3 of my annual sales. So in module 4, I'm walking you through exactly how to get the program started, how to manage and run a subscription program successfully, how it can work. There are lots of different ways to do it. You don't have to do it my way, but we talk through that. And then how to find customers and how to keep customers coming back, because that's a really big piece of it too. So in addition to subscriptions, we also talk about all the other sales channels for cut flowers, from wholesale, retail, talk about farmers markets, talking about selling to local designers and florists. We get into all of that. I have some special guests hopefully coming on to talk to you specifically from their point of view about how to work with them with your cut flowers. That's module 4. Module 5, we get into marketing and branding, which is my favorite part because this is kind of my background before flowers is in marketing. So we talk about how to market your business, how to create a website, start an email list, and why that's so important. Social media, I share a ton of templates from social media posts to emails. I share the exact emails that I send out to my customers, even the more like private emails. I share all of the emails that I send out to my subscription members throughout the year or throughout the season, so you can literally just use them. And we also talk about local marketing and then the customer experience. That's module 5. And then our final week together is all about growing the business. So we'll touch on hiring employees, hosting events if you want to get into hosting workshops, or basically anything. We talk a little bit about holiday sales, how to make your business year round if you choose to do so, like I have, and then getting into a little bit of the retail side of things. So I'm sorry, that was a bit more than a quick overview, but that's what we get into within the sessions. Again, the course side of this is lifetime access. So once you have the course, you can go back to it Whenever you want, kind of look over things and refresh. You can kind of go through the course again whenever you want to. The live piece of it is what is open for 6 weeks for the basic plan, and then 6 months for the VIP tier. So I think that has answered a lot of the questions that I had pertaining to the course over the past couple of days. Again, the course is starting on February 17th. That's when the first module is going to drop, and we'll get going. Our first call is that first Friday. I'm blanking on the dates already, like the 21st or something. And I am closing doors to the coaching program on February 14th. So Valentine's Day, this Friday. Again, this is something limited that I do. I can only do it while my flowers are not in season. So I can only offer it once a year. And yeah, I hope that has answered a lot of the questions. Again, if you want to get in on the course, you can go over to my page, click on my link in the bio, and then look for the course. So that is In the Weeds. Let me see if I had any other questions that I don't think I touched on. I did have a question about whether the program is held the same time every week, and I hope that I've answered that. So the course is the course content you can refer to at any time. All of the downloads, it's actually a series of videos and slides that you can go through that I've recorded. And then, like I said, downloads, content, templates, everything that you have to use is there to peruse whenever you need to. And then the live calls are going to be held on Fridays at 11 a.m. And again, they are recorded and then put in your course content. So that's all about the course. I'm going to start going back through here and trying to check through the questions that we've got. Okay. One that I had come through ahead of time from someone who wasn't going to be able to pop on the live here was so they didn't have success with their fall planted cool flowers, which can happen. So when can they start another round of cool flowers? And it depends on your zone. So if you're familiar with cool flowers or hardy annuals, those are flowers that a lot of times the seed packets will tell you not to plant them until after your last frost, but they can tolerate a lot of cold. So for me, that would be snapdragons, sweet William, dianthus, sweet William, delphinium, foxglove. I plant Orlea, bachelor's buttons, feverfew. There's a whole list of hardy annuals that I plant in the fall. And if you missed fall planting and overwintering them, then what you want to do is work back from your last average frost date. So in your zone, the last average frost date is the last date that it's expected that you should get frost in your area. For me, it's like early to mid-May. I usually use Mother's Day as my cutoff. So I'm working back from Mother's Day. So say it's May 8th. I'm going to work back from that and go 6 to 8 weeks before that. And that's when I want to have the next round of hardy annuals in the ground. So I'm actually putting in Lisianthus, for example, and I'm going to put them in the end of March, early April, because they can tolerate cold. I will have an Agribon frost cloth over them just to give them some extra protection if it gets really cold. But then they should be blooming. The Lisianthus won't bloom until July, but most of the other hardy annuals like snapdragons, etc., then they should be blooming for me by the end of May. So I get a whole extra month or two jump on the season by planting those hardy annuals. So again, if you missed out on planting in the fall, count backwards from your last average frost, 6 to 8 weeks, and that's when you want to put plants in the ground outside. So do the math. If you're starting seeds that you're going to, and you're going to have transplants put in the ground, you want to work back from that date then. So if you're starting the seeds indoors, that's another 6 to 8 weeks. So you're talking like 12 to 16 weeks before your last frost date is when you need to be starting seeds. So probably right now. Hopefully that answers that question. Another question that I had was when to open up a caterpillar tunnel. So a caterpillar tunnel is something like I use for my anemone and ranunculus. It actually has greenhouse plastic on it. And I open that up if the temperature is basically above 50, 55 degrees because it gets really warm inside, especially if it's sunny. So I open up the sides and vent them. I never totally take the tunnel off until the season is basically over because it gives me a little bit of protection from the deer and anything else that might be walking around, but I'll just push the sides up completely. So basically the plants are out there in the field without cover. So above 50, 55 degrees, you're venting the sides, and then if it gets down close to freezing again at night, closing it up. It's a lot of up, down, and up and down throughout the spring. All right, let me check your questions here. I see a lot of familiar faces here. I see some past In the Weeds members that have joined in here. I'm so happy to see you. I still have great relationships with pretty much all of the students that have gone through my course last year. I actually had 70 students over the course of the year go through In the Weeds, and I am just thrilled to see how their businesses progressed last year and are going into year 2 for a lot of them. So, all right, Rosie Seeds is asking, how do you get longer stem lengths for anemone? Stem length really has nothing to do with what you're doing and all about daylight for anemones. So they always start off super short. Like the first anemones I cut are about that big, like barely big enough for long enough for a bud vase. But as the days get longer, the anemones actually stretch towards the sunlight and they're going to get taller. So by the end of the season, sometimes last season was a really good one because we had sort of a cool spring, but it was sunny and the days were getting longer. And I had, 15-inch to 18-inch anemone stems. So give them a little bit of time. They just need some more daylight. Let's see. Oh, why did these freeze? Okay, there we go. I think my hands are so cool. I'm out here in the flower shop. I haven't been out here for weeks. The last time I really worked out here was, I think, the day before I went into the hospital to have Johnny. So it's been a while. It's a little chilly. Let's see. Suggestions for starting seeds in the house. So I don't have a lot of room or a greenhouse. I don't have a greenhouse either. And when I started, I also started my seeds in the house. I didn't have this space here. So let's see. The first year, I literally set up the seed rack in our extra bathroom downstairs and basically didn't allow anyone to use that bathroom. And if they had to use the bathroom, then they had to visit my seeds while they were in there. I think eventually I tried to move them sort of into a closet, and that didn't really work. But put your seeds set up wherever you can, basically. Somewhere that's going to be kind of out of the way of people, somewhere that you're getting nice airflow. You don't want them to get too cold in the house. I don't think you should have to worry about that. I eventually, year 2, moved my setup down to the basement. We live in an old farmhouse, and it's like a totally unfinished cellar. I can barely stand up the whole way. So that's where I put my seed racks because they were out of the way. It stayed cool down there, but not too cold. And then just make sure you have lights. Do not rely on the windowsill to start your seeds. It's not going to go well. Trust me. You'll end up with, your seedlings are going to get really leggy and then just flop over. You need a lot of light to start seeds. So you're going to want to go out to the hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever, get yourself some shop lights. Literally just shop lights. There's nothing special you need here. You just need, a shop light. I don't know what you want to call, kind of like the metal piece that you put the lights into, and then get 2 bulbs. You're going to look for one warm bulb and one cool bulb. You'll see them. Again, go to Lowe's, Home Depot, hardware store, and you'll see it says warm, cool. They have different, lights. You want one warm and one cool because you want to try to mimic the full spectrum of light that plants will be getting outside from the sun. Put one of each bulb in your shop light thing, plug it in, and make sure it is about 2 inches from the top of your seedlings. So that means, say this is my seed tray. Wish I had one here. You want the shop light like here when you first start, when you first sow the seeds. And then as they start to grow, just keep bumping the shop light up. So I use like a metal chain and then a hook system that I can just bump them up. You can find most of my seed starting setup linked on my Amazon shop, which is in my bio. So again, wherever you're putting your seed starting setup, just do not do it in a windowsill. Make sure you have the full setup. I have a blog post also all about seed starting over on my blog. I think somehow I got lost here in the questions. Oh, I hope I didn't miss anyone. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Foliage that I grow for early spring blooms is mostly perennials. So in the spring, especially if you're growing anemone and ranunculus and daffodils, narcissus, tulips, there's not a whole lot that you can grow as an annual that works really well as a green or a foliage. So that's when I'm out either foraging around the farm for some of the very first leaves that have popped open, or some of my absolute favorites are hellebore. Lenten rose. So I have those growing, and they start blooming. They bloom, but they're really there's a flower, but their foliage is really nice too. I use that as a filler and a foliage combined, and that's sometime in March, end of March. I use my basically perennials, Spirea bush. I have viburnum. Sometimes I use my lilac bush for foliage. Trying to think what else down there. Baptisia. Basically, you're going to want to rely on perennials. And then often for early spring blooms, like anemones, I'll just sell them by the bunch by themselves. If I don't have any foliage blooming, which I didn't like the first year, I didn't know about planting foliage and fillers or that I would need them. I just sold the anemones by the bunch, and that works too. Okay, so besides zinnias and sunflowers, what other easy focal flowers would you recommend growing? This is a question that I actually wanted to answer that I had jotted down because I get it a lot. Flowers for beginners, basically. And sunflowers is one, and zinnias is another. Zinnias because they are cut and come again, so you'll basically have flowers for many, many weeks, and lots of flowers from the same plant each week. So zinnias, sunflowers, I recommend dahlias. I think they kind of intimidate new people, but they are awesome. They really make your bouquet stand out. I think there are so many different dahlias. You can really get a wide variety of colors. So I would recommend checking out dahlias. I like snapdragons. I think they're not actually probably not a focal flower, but I just don't think my early summer bouquets would be complete without them. Another would be Rudbeckia. So that's a black-eyed Susan. That is kind of gives you the same look as a sunflower, but the size of a zinnia. Sunflowers can be really hard to work with in mixed bouquets when they get really big. So a Rudbeckia or black-eyed Susan gives you that same bright pop of color without, lost my screen here, without the big sunflower. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Those are some of my favorite focal flowers for the summer. And then fillers for those same kinds of flowers. Someone is asking about fillers to grow for zinnias, peonies, and dahlias. So first of all, your peonies aren't going to be blooming at the same time as your zinnias. Oh, I hate when that happens. Go away. Your peonies are not going to be blooming at the same time as your zinnias and dahlias. So for peonies, my fillers would be sometimes snapdragons. These are early spring flowers. Basically anything that I've planted in the fall, all of my cool flowers are going to become fillers or go along with my peonies. So, lost my train of thought. Snapdragons, feverfew, Sweet William is a big one in the spring. Mint is one of my big ones for the spring. And then for zinnias and dahlias, definitely in the summer, I recommend growing celosia. And you can just grow different varieties of celosia. It gives you a lot of different looks as fillers. Ageratum is another one. Yeah, I have a full grow list, and that is something that we go over in the course, exactly what I recommend growing. Oh, here's a good question. I have like I said, there are a lot of past In the Weeds students on here and wondering about whether there's anything new, if they can do it again. And yes, I am actually totally updating the course this year and moving it over to a new platform. So it's going to be a little bit easier to navigate. And if you were already in the course, again, you get lifetime access, and anytime I make an update, you also get those updates and you get access to the new platform too. So watch for an email from me about that. If you were in the weeds last year, I'll also be over in our kind of alumni group chat filling you in on that. Let's see. This is a good question. And it's probably one that's better geared towards one of my live calls with my coaching students, because it's going to get a bit in depth, but I'll read it to you here. Is there a certain number of sales outlets that you recommend in order to keep your business focused and refined? Example, I do a roadside stand, subscriptions, special orders, and wholesales. I can't say that there's any one number that I can just give you that's a magic number. It's all going to depend on your local market, your local audience, kind of lots of factors. And we can talk about that kind of more in depth. I can tell you what I do, which I'm sure if you've been following for any time you know of. I do subscriptions. I have a self-serve roadside stand, and I have a retail shop here on the farm that is open a lot of the year. I don't do wholesale. I no longer sell to florists or designers. It just didn't work for my business. I don't do U-Pick. I'm really not doing many events right now. So it just depends. You might need to do 5 things, or you might be able to just do 1 or 2 farmers markets and make your business work. There are a lot of factors in there. So I would love to be able to talk to you more about that. I think that it's maybe a little bit in depth for this chat here, but that is a good question. Here's another good question about fall for hardy annuals. So this person is in zone B. Her snaps were about a foot tall already when we got a load of snow a couple of weeks ago, and they're kind of laid down. Should I restart them? Snaps are incredibly hardy. I can never believe that these tiny, tiny little seeds that snapdragons start from turn into these robust plants that they do. My snaps are also looking a little bit rough since we've had snow and the most cold temperatures we've had since I started doing this. I have no doubt that they're going to be just fine. What I would probably recommend doing is basically the weather has pinched your snaps for you. So we pinch snapdragons to get more stems off of the same plant. So typically pinching involves going along and literally snipping or picking off the top of the plant, and then it branches out from where you cut it. So what I have found is wherever the cold or weather has kind of messed up my snapdragon plant, say it kind of like does really frost damage from here up, I might take it off, or it might just fall off on its own, and that is where the pinch happens. And then you also might find that it's starting to put up new foliage kind of from the roots. So check around, kind of dig around your plants and see if you can find some new growth coming up. I would recommend cutting off the stuff that's laying down, because snapdragons, they're never going to recover. They're just not going to stand straight up again. So I would probably cut them wherever they flopped and keep them low and let them get bushy here over the next couple of weeks, or really until they start blooming for you. You're probably going to get blooms on your snaps end of April is what I would guess. I'm not in your zone, but just judging off of your zone versus mine, I would think that's when you're going to get some blooms. See. How much land do you need to even start a flower business? Another great question. And there are some people who have started amazing businesses with very, very little space. I'm talking like a backyard cutting garden. Typically, I say that what I would think is a good size is maybe like a 10 foot by, no, I'm going to say like 20 by 20 would probably give you quite a bit of space. If you can, maybe like 20 foot by 50 foot. You can grow a lot of flowers in a small space. What you need to be cognizant of is how you're using your space. So as opposed to kind of landscape gardening, or what you might be used to if you haven't cut flowers for profit before, is you put some seeds in the ground and then you cut from them all summer, and that's it. What you're going to want to do is to maximize your space is succession plant. So that means you've got different rounds of plants going in the ground basically all the time, and you're constantly flipping beds and rotating things. So you don't wait until the zinnias are like completely dead. You rip them out when they're like 3/4 done and put something else in there. So you just really need to be smart with your space, kind of interplanting things, being really tight on your planting space. Don't go by the seed packets. Zinnias don't need to be 12 to 18 inches apart. I plant my zinnias about 9 inches apart. So just making the most of your space and kind of learning how to do that. And then again, how much land will also depend on what you plan to do with your flowers. Are you going to farmer's market? Are you supplying a wholesaler? How many varieties do you need to grow? There are lots of different questions that go into that question. Okay, when should we expect fall planted flowers to bloom? I want to be able to sell them, but not sure when to expect them, zone 7B. That's a good question. It's going to take probably your first year to figure that out. I probably wouldn't book an event and plan on you having all of the flowers that you planted in the fall, like on May 1st. It just depends on the weather. For example, I have a spring subscription program that I just started last year, and these people are getting my favorite spring flowers. They're getting anemone, ranunculus, peonies, hellebore, narcissus, tulips. But I give a caveat that I cannot guarantee the dates for that subscription program. So basically I give them an estimate of what I think, even 7 years in, this is when I think that I should have ranunculus for your bouquets. I think it'll be, let's say April 12th. But if we get, a cold snap, or it could be warm for a while, then we have them earlier. So be flexible with those flowers. I feel more confident saying that I will have zinnias and dahlias for you on August 12th. I would never say I am definitely going to have anemones for you on April 12th. My goodness. Thought someone was coming in the window. I hope that makes sense. Make notes this year. If this is your first year growing fall planted hardy annuals, make notes of when they're blooming. That's what I do. And every year I'm going back, it'll get to be March, and I start looking through my pictures on my phone from last year to say, oh, I can expect like the snaps are probably going to start this time. But yeah, it'll depend on your zone and what your weather is like from year to year. Okay. Let's see. Pests on the dahlias. Yeah, we do have, so I typically, as far as pests, I deal with Japanese beetles. Sometimes I've had grasshoppers come through that can be kind of destructive too. Japanese beetles tend to be my biggest pest, and how I have learned to mitigate them. This past year, I was using beetle traps that helped tremendously. I wish I had started using them earlier. They're like these plastic bags with a terrible scented like packet that goes along with them, and you hang them like 50 feet away from your plants, and the beetles go that way and then get into this bag and they can't get out. So I found that they helped. I am not, I don't like to spray for pests, bugs or anything, but if they get bad, I do. I'm not growing, I don't practice organic growing. So if you do, then you'll probably want to go check with somebody else. But once or twice a summer, I will probably go through and spray something. I try to do like neem oil because I really don't want to kill the beneficial insects. And I also don't like my children and myself and our pets being out there after I've sprayed either. So I really try not to spray, but if they get really bad, I do. That's how I handle them. Let's see. Ranunculus. Do you individually pot your sprouted ranunculus or straight into the ground? How do I prep my soil, especially now in February? Great question. We try to prep the ground in the fall. So I do 2 plantings of anemone and ranunculus. I plant in September, October, and then I plant again here soon. I'm actually a couple weeks late with my planting. And what I do is prepare the soil for both rounds back in the fall. So I have extra space under my tunnels, or I have a whole separate tunnel that's just empty right now, ready to be planted into. And that takes some planning, obviously, and you might not have known that you were going to do that last fall. So try to make the most of any nice days that you get. If you get a stretch of warmer weather, get out there and get the soil ready to plant. I do put them straight into the ground. I don't have them individually potted or anything. I do a little trench, and I put the sprouted anemone and ranunculus into the trench, cover them up, and let them go. You can see how I do that. I've got lots of reels and posts about how I do that over on my page. Maybe check my highlights. I have a spring corm highlight. It shows you how I plant them. But yeah, planting in the spring definitely takes some prep work. Let's see. Tried to get Jim to come out here with me and answer, look through comments to get questions for me, but someone had to sit with the kids. Best way to get subscription customers. This is something I go into in the course, in depth, talking about marketing your flowers, especially before they've even bloomed. It's hard to do, but it's something that I recommend doing. I'll just give you maybe 1 or 2 ideas here to get customers for your subscription program. I started out by I did a pop-up at a local boutique when I first started out. So I had all of these anemone and ranunculus blooming. That's what I planted my first year. If you're not familiar with my story, I planted my first flowers in the fall, like September of 2018. decided in like late August that I wanted to start a flower business and had to go right away. So I grabbed, like, I was only able to get orange ranunculus at that point, and then I had kind of mixed colors of anemones and put some hardy annuals into the ground. So put them in the ground, and then all of a sudden it was March and I had flowers. And I'm like, what do I do with all of these? Now I need to sell them. So what I did, which ended up being really successful, was doing a pop-up at a local boutique. So I would wrap my flowers up and take them in there once a week. For the first couple of weeks, I was actually there kind of in the shop with my flowers. And what I did was take a sign-up sheet. And at this point, it was literally just, what do you call it? A clipboard, paper, pencil. And I would, strike up a conversation with whoever I was chatting with, whether or not they were buying flowers. But I'd just say, hey, would you like to be on my email list? I'm just starting my business. I think I might have had business cards at that point too, but I made sure that I tried to get their email address, wrote it down, and I get home and type them all in and add them to my email list. So then that was like March. By like May, when I was like, okay, I'm going to do a subscription program, I had a bunch of people. I mean, it might have been 100 people. It might have been that small that I could email. And that's where I got my first customers. So between that email list and then also just social media, word of mouth, and I'm talking about friends and family word of mouth. So it's not like I was going out and finding brand new people to talk to. My first customers for my subscriptions, I think I might have had like 10. And I knew half of them and I didn't know half of them. So that's something I would suggest doing. Starting an email, doing a pop-up somewhere, whether you're at a coffee shop or a boutique, or if you, anywhere you can go, or if you don't have flowers to sell yet, just get yourself out there. This is something else that I was going to talk about if I had time, but how to get a business started. Don't wait until you have flowers to start talking about the fact that you're starting this. People like to see the journey. You're probably here watching me because something about what I posted was interesting to you. Seeing maybe what I'm doing, how I started my business, how I'm running my business, how I'm doing it with kids. That's what I get a lot of. People like to see the person behind the business, even if you're just starting. Just human nature is being curious about, hey, what's Katie doing? It's like, what's she doing with her flowers? Start posting about it. So make a business page, or don't make a business page. Post about it on your personal Facebook page or Instagram page. But that starts to build some word of mouth. And then you never know who might become interested through the people that you know. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a lot of what we go over in the course. Like I said, module 5 is all about marketing and your brand. And that's what we talk about. Finding customers, getting your name out there, etc. Okay, someone is struggling with succession planting, how to do that, how to plan for it. So again, keep referring back to the course, but I share my whole succession planting, my planting schedule, and how I sow successions. Basically, my rule of thumb is the plants that I am doing successions of. Successions means how many times I'm planting them. So let's take my celosia, for example. That's something that I succession plant. I put my first planting in at my last average frost date. So I aim to have that in the ground like the week of Mother's Day or right after. And then I plant 2 more rounds of celosia, basically 3 or 4 weeks between each one. So that gives me enough fresh celosia to be cutting throughout the entire season. So the first round starts to bloom like end of June, second round, end of July, third round is end of August, and kind of gets me through the fall season. So it takes some figuring out. You need to figure out what plants need to be succession planted. Sunflowers are another one because they are one and done. So you don't want to just plant all of your sunflowers in May and expect that you're going to have sunflowers in September. Sunflowers are 50 to 60 days typically to flower. So if you're growing sunflowers, you're going to want to plant sunflowers basically every week until midsummer. Okay. So excited to see, hi Rachel, excited to see so many of my past students here chatting. Okay, I started snaps in a greenhouse. Lucky you to have a greenhouse. Should I transplant now as long as the ground is workable? I'm in zone 7B. Please refer to what I said earlier about hardy annuals. You want to plant the snaps in the ground 6 to 8 weeks before your last average frost. So you are like a zone or two ahead of me. I'm not sure when your last average frost date is, but work back from that, and that's when you want to put those snaps that you started into the ground. It's still really, really cold where I am, so although the snaps that are out there now that were planted in the fall can handle that cold, you don't want to be putting baby plants that are used to the greenhouse out in frigid temps. You want to give them a little bit more time before you put them in the ground, and then just be prepared to cover them if needed, if it's getting, below freezing at night. Oh, here's a good question. How to keep organized going into year one, just Excel. Basically, whatever is going to work for you to keep organized. I thought there was some magic bullet to putting this business together. Like I need to have this software and this program or this, and I was just, trying to figure out. I've seen some software out there that helps you. I think it claims to help you plan out your garden. I don't know about that. I would not buy into that. But yeah, I'm still managing some of my most successful programs, like my subscription program. I use Excel or Google Sheets. That's a template that I share that you can download and use in the program. I've kind of put I like Excel and like to use formulas, so I have it all worked out. So every week I know who's getting flowers and how many bouquets I have to make and all of that. But basically I would recommend using whatever you are going to stick to. Just make sure you keep track of things, and it's not just to stay organized throughout the year, but like I was saying, to refer back to next year so that you can go back and say, now what did I do? When did I plant that? When did that bloom? I'm really bad at that. I always say I'm going to make a note for myself when I get in from the field. And then I often don't, but it's nice if you can keep track of when things are blooming, how many stems you cut each day, all of that kind of stuff. Ranunculus. Yeah. When do you plant when the ranunculus are done for the season for succession? What do you plant when the ranunculus are done? I'm not sure about that question. If it's talking about ranunculus being a succession planted thing, they're not. Ranunculus and anemone are going to stop blooming when it gets above 75 degrees and staying there. They don't like really hot temperatures, so that's why they are early spring flowers. That's why we plant them so early to make the season longer. So I don't plant any more rounds of them. When they're done and it's hot, they're done. And when they're done, then you could plant something else on top of them if you need that space. I know some people leave them in the ground. Some people dig up the corms. That's not been something I've ever had the time or desire to do. I just buy new corms every year. But I think some people do plant on top of them, like celosia would be a good thing to plant on top of ranunculus. And then when the celosia is done, the ranunculus might come back up the following fall. Let's see, what time are we here? Okay, take a few more questions and then I need to get back in. Orlea planted in the fall seemed to have vanished when I picked under the cover today. I thought they were super hardy. Yeah, Orlea are super hardy. Now I no longer plant Orlea because it direct sows itself. So I now have an infestation of Orlea. So beware if you let that go to seed. You're going to have Orlea everywhere. I would guess that they're probably okay. Maybe the top sort of died back because we've had such cold temperatures, a lot of us have recently. So I would maybe give them a couple weeks and check again, or check real close to the ground and see if you see some foliage. But if not, maybe toss some more in. Orlea seed is pretty inexpensive, so you could probably even just toss that in the ground now and you'll have Orlea come spring, and then you'll never get rid of it. Let's see. Someone's asking about selling tubers. Oh, that's tricky. Sales tax on tubers, and I'm not going to try to answer this question specifically to you. I'm sorry. But basically, sales tax is dependent on your state. So make sure you know the rules for your state. If you're selling wholesale, then you're not going to charge tax. And if you're selling them retail, then you are. So just make sure you know the rules for your state. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I also don't sell tubers, so I can't speak to that. But you're going to want to maybe check with your local ag extension office, or even reach out to your state Department of Revenue, or figure out the sales tax for your state. That's important, whether you're selling tubers or flowers or anything. Make sure you know the rules for collecting sales tax ahead of time. We talk about that in the course in week 1. I see the rest of your question here. Do you know if they're adding it into the tuber price? I have no idea. So this person is wondering about sales tax on dahlia tubers. I'm sorry, I don't know what individual farms are doing. I'm not going to try to speak to that. You might want to reach out to them and ask them. Here's a good question. Do I use Square or another purchase device, or just Zelle and PayPal? Again, we talk about this in the course about accepting payments. I use Shopify as my point of sale system. I have used Square and I loved it. I would use Square in a heartbeat, but I use Shopify because I'm doing a lot of e-commerce. But if I was just doing flowers here at the farm, I would use Square. I also use PayPal and Venmo in my self-serve stand. I accept cash. So yes, I recommend taking as many forms of payment as you can, because you want to make it easy for your customer. You don't want to have a customer there ready to buy flowers and then you're not able to take their preferred form of payment. Just my thoughts. Okay, so here's a good question pertaining to retail. So if you're not familiar with my business, I also have a retail shop here at the farm that's open almost year round. And I sell other inventory in addition to my flowers. So kind of like any other flower and gift shop. I just sell a collection of things that I think are nice. So candles are my top seller, probably next to flowers. I also sell vases. I sell a lot of garden supplies, some house plants. So the question is, are the other items that you sell in your shop as profitable as your flowers? I'm in the process of adding other items. Do you go to a trade fair? So I would love to go to a trade fair. I haven't, but I do source things wholesale. I have a couple different vendors that I like to use. I recommend finding, if you're going to sell retail, just, find stuff that you like, because that's the stuff that you are going to be able to sell best to your customers. If you think it's a great item, it's probably going to strike a nerve with someone who's following you. And yes, they can be, if you're pricing them appropriately, I think that adding on retail items can be just as profitable as the flowers. Your numbers could look different than mine, just depends on how you do it. But I have found that it's been a good addition to my business and something kind of fun. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up. So basically, hopefully I've been able to answer, I think I've answered just about all of the questions I saw there that I could. I'm just checking my list here that I've got yesterday. Oh, something I wanted to talk about quickly before we wrap it up, and that is some tips for starting a small business this year, or starting a cut flower business this year. If you are thinking about starting a business, whether you want to sort of have a side hustle like I talked about, if you already have a job and just want to do flowers on the side, if you are a mom like me and kind of trying to figure out how you can balance being mom and also providing still for your family, being creative. Here are a couple of things that I would do to get started. So first of all, I want you to figure out, where are you going to sell these flowers? Don't do what I do, or I did, and start all of your flowers and then they're blooming and you have nowhere to go with them. I want you to brainstorm brainstorm 3 places or 3 ways that you think that you could sell your flowers this year. So whether it's a roadside stand or popping up at some farmers markets or doing a subscription, or there's a whole slew of things think about the places where you're going to sell your flowers this year. The second thing I want you to do is start to establish a presence somewhere. If you're on here, that means you're on social media. So I'm not going to, I'm going to assume that you're okay with being on social media. So pick one platform. So don't try to do all of it. It's mind-boggling, and I am not, it's just not fun. You need to pick one and go with it. So whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's probably not TikTok, but maybe. I have found that Facebook is the best place at this point for reaching my local audience. So here on Instagram, I get to chat with lots and lots of other flower growers and gardeners and people who are, wanting to do flowers. But I have found that my local flower people are mostly on Facebook. That's the easier place for me to reach them, but maybe that's my age demographic too. So I am in the age where a lot of us are on Facebook. So that's a good place for me to be. So anyway, I want you to pick somewhere and stick with it. So post about your journey, whether you're just getting started and you don't have anything to post about, then post about what you're doing. Say, hey, today I'm going out to the hardware store and I'm buying shop lights and a grow rack and I'm going to start seeds. Check back next week and I'll show you what the seeds look like in a week. Start to tell your story, because that is such a big piece of the marketing puzzle, and getting people to start to get to know you and trust you and become interested in your story and your business. So that's my second piece of advice. And the third thing that I want you to do is think about flowers that are ideal for cut flowers. So pick like 5 flowers, if you're new to this, that you're going to grow this year. Don't try to grow everything. You're going to burn out really quick. You're going to get frustrated. It's a lot to keep track of, especially if you have another job, a full-time job or a part-time job, you've got kids running around, it's just too much. Pick a handful of flowers. I have a free list, cut flowers for beginners that I recommend that you can grow this summer. Pick those couple and start there. Make lots of notes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make sure you're picking flowers that are ideal for cut flowers. So those are 3 tips that I have for you. And yeah, just one more plug. I would love to help as many of you as I possibly can this year. So my coaching program enrollment ends on February 14th, and then we start on the 17th. So 6 weeks later, by the end of March, you are going to have all of the info that you need to get a business going this year, just like I did. I'm sharing all of my tips, laying out the framework for starting a business, showing you how to grow flowers and make money doing it, sharing all of my templates. I started from scratch here, and then I've created all of these resources, and I share every single one of them with the students in the group. If you don't see something that you'd like to see, I probably have it and can share it. So basically, I would love to help you. We start on the 17th. You can find a link with more information on my bio. And thank you for joining. This is fun. Hopefully we can make this a more regular thing. So, see you later.